You know, they're classic fly patterns, patterns that were designed years ago that are still as effective today as they were when they were first designed. Join me and I'll show you one of my favorite classic damsel fly patterns. Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel and to my fly tying bench. My name is Phil Rowley. If you haven't visited my channel before, I provide fly tying and fly fishing video content that I hope makes your next day on the water just that little bit more rewarding. Today I'm going to tie one of my favorite classic Stillwater fly patterns, Randall Kaufmann's Marabou Damsel, a pattern I believe should be in every Stillwater fly box. It's a simple fly, it's easy to tie, and it contains all the key properties common to any good damselfly nymph pattern. Join me, I'll show you how to tie it. So let's tie Randall Kaufmann's Marabou Damsel, a classic Stillwater pattern that needs to be in every fly box. It's simplicity personified. It's a hook, it's wire, and it's marabou. Very easy to tie and deadly effective pattern. So into the jaws of the vise, I've got a Daiichi 1260, 2 extra long scud hook. It's kind of a light wire, but it's still stout and strong enough, straight eye. And when coupled with a non-slip loop knot, really shakes and rattles down there when you're retrieving it. So we're just going to use some olive tying thread. You could use brown tying thread. And we're just going to put a thread base down. Trim off the waist. Cover that hook shank with tying thread. 12s and 14s would be good sizes to tie this in, even 16s in the fall months when trout often get focused on little baby or immature damsels. And now we're just going to come back up. Damsel flies are skinny, so we want to tie our materials along the entire length of the shank because we don't have the luxury of being able to cover them up with other materials without making the fly too bulky. So as the fly's name would imply, the entire fly, the body, the tail, and the little stub wing we're going to tie are all out of marabou. So there's lots of choices. Barred marabous like this. Olive brown would be a good color, and darker algae type lakes. Olive rust is a good color. You could use just standard light olive, ginger. There's just whatever color marabou you want. I'm going to use some of the olive rust coloration. So I've just got a plume here, and I'm just going to take a clump off the side. This may be about 1 inch long, and just kind of roll it and fold it. And what that does is going to align the tips of the tail, the tips of the marabou. And I got a little bit of static going here today, so I'm just going to use some moisture, but I'm just going to, Randall used to, I believe, tear his tails to length. I like, if I can, to use the natural tips of the tails. I just think the natural taper wiggles a little bit. So I'm going to tie this in so the tail sticks out, maybe a little elongated, about the shank length of the hook. Slide my thumb and forefinger back to where the thread is hanging, and that's where I'm going to cut off the residue, the remaining bits. A couple of thread wraps to get that secured on top of the shank, and then just walk that thread back and open wraps. You'll notice I'm lifting up on the marabou under slight tension. That stops it from rolling around the hook shank, keeps the materials where you want to place them, the top, the bottom, the sides. And there you go, we've got the tail in place. If there's a few ratty ends, I will perhaps come in and pinch those off, but for the most part I just want to keep those intact. For the ribbing, I'm going to use some small UTC copper wire. I'm going to lay that copper wire along the near side of the shank, so there's enough copper wire forward of the tie-in point to go completely up the shank. And again, I'm trying to keep this fly as skinny as I can, so every time I move this thread up and down the shank, I'm doing something. I'm not building up any extra bulk, just moving the thread back and forth. We've got that tied in, and for the body and stub wing, I'm going to use another section of this rust marabou. Going to strip off And make sure you choose a plume. This one's got lots of nice long fibers, so I got lots to work with. So I'm just going to strip off maybe half, probably 3/8 of an inch off the stem. I'm going to stroke these fibers together, kind of twist them. I'm going to come in, and I like, you know, I prefer Marabou. This one's got lots of nice little fine fibers on it that's going to radiate out. I'm going to stroke it, moisten it, take it down to the tips like so. I'm going to square those tips off to aid the tie-in process and just secure them on top of the shank like so. Work them right down to the base of the tail. Now in smaller sizes, or sometimes you get those plumes that just have lots of length to them, you could conceivably tie this fly in one application of Marabou for the tail, for the body, and the stub wing. I don't have that luxury with this. It's not quite long enough, so I just tied it in 2 sections. So I'm just going to take a first turn around, and once I've got the Marabou sort of using the hook shank to my advantage, so I'm not twisting on the tie-in point, I'm going to twist that Marabou up like so, and just that'll make the fibers radiate out. And just one wrap right in front of the other. Right up the shank, keep twisting, come right up, tie that off with a couple of wraps. Do not trim the excess. That's going to be used to form a little stub wing. And now we're just going to come up with our copper wire and just nice open spirals, working that through the Marabou so we don't mat down any of the tips that the twisting motion allowed us to make stand out. Just go in front of the Marabou, a couple of wraps over the top, a couple of wraps behind, pull and twist at the tie-off point. And now we're just going to take our remaining Marabou, and I'm just going to build up a little thread head and push it backwards like so. We're going to now put some super glue, or in this case some of the Solaris Bone Dry, right on tying thread. Hold that Marabou back, work that in, grab our whip finisher, do a 3 to 5 turn whip finish. Remove our tying thread, grab our curing light, just try and secure the bone dry. That's done, and then all we're going to do is come in, go down about 1/3 of the way or halfway down the body, kind of fan it out, give it a good tug, and there is your finished Marabou Damsel. When this gets wet, that's going to slick back and suggest the Wingcase. Lots of movement. Deadly simple fly. So there you have it. Randall Kaufmann's Marabou Damsel. Simplicity in a fly personified. Marabou tail, body, and wing. Copper wire rib, or a wire rib of whatever color you like, and a hook. It doesn't get any simpler than that, and boy does this fly perform. A classic that should be in every Stillwater fly fisher's fly box.